Hello and welcome back to Hunt Hill at Home. Thank you so much for watching and happy Monday. Today we are going to be talking about fur and feathers. Now the reason why I chose this, even though we did a whole feather investigation before, is because there's so much more to understand about fur and feathers and how they help keep animals warm. Now this is really important right now because if you live in this area, you'll know that it snowed recently. And so all the snow that came is really affecting the animals and how they survive these cold weathers. You can see right behind me there's a whole bunch of snow right outside the coop, and it is chilly. My temperature says that it's about 34 degrees and it's really close to freezing, just warm enough that things are starting to melt a little bit. The wind is pretty strong though. It's about 15 miles per hour and it makes it feel way chillier than just about freezing. Now, our joke of the day is related to it freezing. So what do you call a bird that gets stuck in a snowstorm? A bird. So we're going to do an experiment today about how animals keep warm in the winter. So what I've got is I have these two identical containers. Both I'm going to fill up with warm water that's about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. 100 degrees is about the temperature that most warm-blooded animals have to be. Humans need to be around 98.6, and chickadees need to be a little warmer during the daytime. They tend to be closer to 100 degrees. But anyway, we're going to settle on 100 degrees for our temperature. So these will be filled up with water, and then we're going to have one be our control. So one is going to be totally bare, and we're going to see how cold it gets over time without any covering. The other one is going to be covered with some fur, and we're going to see how well that fur insulates the jar. We'll have them out for 5 minutes, and I'll tell you some other things about fur and feathers as we do that, and then we'll check on them again and see how much they've cooled down and see if the fur helped at all to insulate. Now, I already filled up my containers and I put them into this insulated lunch bag so that I can control a little bit about the temperatures before we set them up. So I know these are equal temperatures. I filled them inside so they didn't cool down. And we've got a little thermometer in here for us to measure our temperatures. I've got two so I can measure them at the same time. So here's our two bottles that have been filled up with water. And here's our fur. This is muskrat fur. And I'm going to just slip this bottle right inside the muskrat fur. Then, so my body heat's not messing with it, I'm going to take both of these and I'm going to set them in the snow in the shade behind me. Can you see me? I think my lunch bag blocked your view, but they're right behind me in that shade by the coop. So, we're going to wait 5 minutes. It is 1:05 right now, so we'll check at 1:10. And while we wait, I'm going to share with you some cool things about fur and feathers. So, with me, I have a coyote pelt, and I also have a wing of a bird. Now, these things look very different. They're two different types of animals. We have a bird and we have a mammal, but they use the same strategies to help keep warm. So, let's take a look at our coyote. So, The coyote has pretty coarse fur on top here. It's thick and long, and this thick, long fur is slightly water resistant, so that if I were to put water right on top of it, I'm not sure if you can see that, there's a little bit of melted water. It beads up and falls off, just like water off a duck's back. Now, underneath this top layer of fur, there's actually called some underfur, which is this underlayer that has really fine, soft fur. Let's see if I can get it close enough to the camera that you can see. So, you can see these little fuzzy bits that are fine, soft fur. This stuff is really great for helping insulate. So, all of those little pockets of air between these little fine pieces of underfur is actually getting caught so that the warm air stays close to the body and keeps this coyote warm throughout the winter. Now, if we look at our bird feathers, we see a similar thing happening. So, on top here we have what are called the flight feathers. If they were along the body, they would be body feathers. But these feathers are tough and rigid, and they are really good at keeping water. Let's see, need to melt a little bit of water. There we go. Ooh, this is really good. Let's see if I can get you to see it. It just drips right off of the feathers, which keeps the bird nice and dry. Now, if we flip this over, you're going to see the underside of the wing. If you look really closely at the underside of the wing, you see these fluffy bits. Halfway between, there's ones that are kind of like flight feathers and kind of like the fluffy feathers. These ones are plumes. And then really close to the body is the down. These are downy feathers. And this down is the same sort of thing that you would find in your pillow or your down comforter. In this you have a synthetic type that's made out of plastics. It's probably made out of the down of things like chickens or turkeys or goose. So this stuff traps the air close to the body so that the bird can stay warm, and then these help the bird stay dry. Let me check on my time quick. Ooh, we're getting really close. So, both of these are using the same strategies to keep themselves dry by having the coarser, thicker area on the outside, and then on the inside having that fluffy bit to catch all that air. Now, animals also use their habitat to help them stay warm. So they don't have to rely just on their fur and their feathers. They might also find a nice place to get cozy. So if you're worried about the animals that went through the snowstorm yesterday, I think most of them are probably fine because they went and found some shelter. But we're going to check on our different animals that we're experimenting on and see how they're doing. Okay, so here's our muskrat with fur. Here's our muskrat without fur. It's naked. And I'm just going to unscrew the tops. And I want to do this kind of quickly because I don't want them losing a whole lot of heat while I'm testing their temperature. So I'm going to stick these in there and then check to see what comes of it. So this is still adjusting a little bit. Okay. I'm gonna just wait for the needles to settle down, and then I'll know for sure what it is. Okay. So these must have been higher than 100 degrees before, because the one in the muskrat fur is reading about 115 degrees. The one without the muskrat fur is reading to be 100 degrees. So this one, without any fur, dropped 15 degrees over 5 minutes. Now, of course, animals are always creating more heat because they're burning off food that they ate. So this isn't an exact model, because this one would still be using energy to keep itself warm. But it's important to know, because animals want to use as little energy as possible. So an animal would much rather have fur than not have fur. Otherwise, it's going to be using so much energy to stay warm. All right. Thank you so much for watching. I have some really wonderful followers who have been watching me every day. And I also want to remind you that Hunt Hill is funded by donations and memberships. So please feel free to help us out. You can donate on our Facebook page, or you can also mail in a check. We really appreciate any support that we can get. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.